So this is the Sony SRS-XP700. It's a part of Sony's new X series lineup of speakers, and it was announced alongside the Sony XG500. And just like the XG500, the XP700 is trying to differentiate itself from the rest of the competition by having a long-lasting battery life. But there are some noteworthy upgrades to point out here from its predecessor, the Sony XB90, like all new drivers and additional tweeter and an all-new look. Regarding pricing, the XP700 retails for $450, which is the same as the Sony XG500, and Sony continues to try to undercut its competition, in this case the JBL PartyBox 310, which retails for $500. Now in this video, we're going to be focusing on the XP700 exclusively, but if you want to watch any comparisons, you can check out the description below for those videos. Overall, the XP700 is fine and it delivers, but I would try to pick the speaker up if it's on sale. So if you want to pick the speaker up, it'll be linked down below. Now first, let's talk about the design of this speaker. The XP700 is your typical large box speaker with a height of 2¼ feet, and it weighs in at 37¼ pounds. Now this speaker does have built-in carrying handles, but taking the speaker on the go with you can be quite a trek, but it's doable. Now material-wise, the XP700 has a mostly plastic body, which can be a scratch magnet if you plan on taking the speaker around with you on a regular basis, and there's a middle grille on the front. Now on the back, you'll find all of your ports, which can be sealed off from the elements, giving the speaker an IPX4 rating. Meaning that if you plan on regularly using the speaker outdoors on, let's say, the porch, if it starts raining or if you accidentally leave the speaker outdoors overnight, you don't gotta worry about it because a little bit of water isn't going to hurt it. However, one crucial design element that I do gotta point out about the XP700 is that you can't use a speaker stand with it. But now let's talk about the light feature on the speaker. For sure, the light feature on the XP700 is an upgrade from the light feature found on the Sony XB90. And from Sony's app, you can select from a few different lighting modes. Now the main ones are delightful, rave, chill, and strobe. And through Sony's Fiestable app, you can customize this light feature. Now if you use this light feature either indoors or at night, it looks pretty good. And I've also found that this light feature has a good backsplashing effect. However, to be straight up with you, this light feature is not worth using while outdoors in the daytime. You barely even see it. So I would recommend that you just turn off this light feature if you're going to use this speaker outdoors in the daytime, because you will extend your battery life a little bit. But now let's talk about battery life on this speaker. The XP700 has an advertised battery life of 25 hours, but that's with the speaker playing at 25% volume, with its light feature turned off and with its mega bass feature turned on, which is an important thing to take note of, and it's a good thing. Now, if we were talking about, let's say, the Sony XG500 or any other smaller portable Bluetooth speaker, 25% volume is nothing. But 25% volume on the XP700 is a comfortable listening volume. And for comparison's sake, having the XP700 at 50% volume is like having the XG500 at 100% volume, if not a little louder. However, for those curious, at max volume with the mega bass feature turned on and with the light feature turned off, Sony claims you're going to get 6 hours of playback time, and with the light feature turned on, Sony claims you're going to get 5 hours of playback time. Now, there is no way you're going to be able to use this speaker indoors at max volume without suffering any hearing loss, and there's no way you're going to be able to use this speaker at max volume outdoors without getting a visit from the cops. And no, that is not a challenge. So real-world use with this speaker playing at 35 to 40% volume with the mega bass feature turned on and with the light feature turned on, I'm getting a very solid 18 hours of playback time before the battery is fully drained. Now, just as with Sony's other speakers, once the XP700 hits 20% battery, it'll say please charge, but it doesn't constantly say please charge or limit your volume. It'll say please charge once it hits 20% battery and again at 10% battery. However, the thing about the XP700 is that you can always extend its battery life a little bit, either by using it with its light feature turned off, like I mentioned earlier, or you can turn off mega bass. Or you can always switch it over to stamina mode, which turns off both the light feature and mega bass, so that you can get maximum battery life out of it. Now, one new feature on Sony's new X series lineup of speakers is this new battery care feature, which will basically prevent your speaker from charging past 90% battery. Now, yes, you will have to sacrifice a little bit of battery life here, but the idea here is that this will extend the life of your battery. So if you plan on using this speaker for a few years, then you might want to use this feature. But now let's talk about the ports on this speaker. For starters, the XB700 has two 1/4-inch mic inputs, and this could be a big deal for someone who either wants to do karaoke or for hosting small events. And if you want, you can also plug in a guitar. Now, this speaker also has two USB-A ports, so they can charge your own devices if you're out and about, and you can also play music off of a USB stick off of one of these USB ports. Now, I think it's great that the speaker has two USB-A ports, but personally, I still wish the XP700 had at least one USB-C port so that you can charge your own devices or use it as a wired connection, because a lot of newer phones these days are now starting to come included with USB-C cables. But thankfully, you do have your standard 3.5mm audio jack, so you can still use a wired connection with this speaker. But unfortunately, the XP700 doesn't have any RCA inputs, which could be a big deal for someone who might like to moonlight as a DJ. Now, regarding Bluetooth connectivity, this speaker is using Bluetooth 5.0, but more importantly, it can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. There's zero latency across the board when watching movies or videos on your phone. And when it comes to audio codecs, you've got your standard Sony setup of SBC, AAC, and LDAC. But now let's talk about actually listening to music with this speaker. Regarding speaker setups, the XP700 has dual front-mount firing woofers and a total of 4 tweeters. There's 3 on the front, which you can clearly see, and this is what you'd find on the XB90. But new for the XP700, there's now a tweeter on the back. However, all of these tweeters aren't always firing. If you've got the speaker laying down like this, then it'll use these tweeters. Or if you've got the speaker standing upright, then it'll use these tweeters and the tweeter on the back. Now, keep in mind, whether you use the speaker standing up or laying down, you're still going to get a stereo setup, as in you've got your left channel and your right channel. The speaker does not turn into a mono speaker if you were to stand it upright. Now, like with most other speakers that charge via an AC port, if you use the speaker while it's plugged in, it'll get a little louder and its bass will punch a little harder. However, with just its built-in battery, the speaker gets more than loud enough. But if you're hosting an event, then you might want to plug it in. But now let's jump into the sound test. The speaker is going to be playing at 50% volume, but we're going to use it with its mega bass turned on and while it's plugged in. We're also going to use it with its mega bass turned on but unplugged, and we're also going to use it while in stamina mode.
We spent our days on the coast of something beautiful. We got pulled into the tide of something real. But somehow I lost you on the way. I assumed you left me behind. Lifeless days and sleepless nights, so tired of it. I can't get you off my mind, can't forget it. Now I know what I've got to do is find my way back to you. Hey, why did it take us so long? Hey, while I was dancing on my own. Hey, and now my prayers get answered in my darkest time. 'Cause now I found you. I was waiting on the day you would come back to me, hoping that I didn't burn a bridge I couldn't see. And now that you're by my side again, I'll never leave you behind. Lifeless days and sleepless nights, so tired of it. I can't get you off my mind, can't forget it. Now I know what I've got to do is find my way back to you. Hey,
So overall, in classic Sony fashion, the XP700 does have a warmer sound signature to it, and just as you'd expect, this speaker has a lot of bass to it. But like you may have heard, if you use the speaker while in stamina mode, its bass gets severely reduced. But the trade-off here is that you do get to extend your battery life. Now, whether you use the speaker while it's plugged in or not, this thing is going to have no problem rattling the walls in your house, and even while it's outdoors, you're going to feel a decent amount of physicality out of the speaker. But if you use the speaker while it's plugged in, you're going to get more bass out of it. Now, even though the vocals on this speaker might not be as pronounced as the JBL Partybox 310, the bass on the XP700 doesn't really overpower the mids, which is an issue for the Sony XG500. And unlike the Sony XG500, the XP700 doesn't sound super narrow, which is a good thing. Now, the Partybox 310 does manage to inch out the XP700 regarding instrument separation, but nonetheless, the XP700 does sound fairly open. The XP700 doesn't sound muffled like the Sony XB90, which was an issue. But if you do want to bring the mids out a little bit on the speaker, you can always do so through Sony's app. Now, while we're here, I do want to quickly address live sound mode on the speaker. Now, I never use this setting or rarely talk about it because all it does is just that it just adds a whole bunch of reverb to your music, which I don't think sounds all that great, and in all honesty, it's just a gimmick. But finally, there's max volume on the speaker. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no way you're going to be able to use the speaker at max volume indoors without suffering any hearing damage. And if you use the speaker at max volume outdoors, expect a visit from the cops, or at the very least, very grumpy neighbors. But nonetheless, the XP700 gets impressively loud for its size, even off of its internal battery. It's not like the XP500, which off of its internal battery really just leaves you wanting more. But you can always get more out of the XP700 if you use it while it's plugged in. However, at max volume, yes, there is a noticeable amount of distortion, but overall, I feel the XP700 is a speaker that you're mostly going to use between 25 and maybe 60% volume while at home. But if you're like having a rave, that's a whole other story. But finally, let's talk about speaker pairing protocols. The XP700 is using Sony's new Party Connect, meaning that you can pair it up to other Sony Party Connect speakers, like either another XP700 or an XP500. But the really neat thing about Sony's Party Connect is that you can also pair your big box speakers to your smaller, more portable speakers, like either an XG500, XB43, XB33, or even an XB23. And this is a pretty big deal because for comparison's sake, JBL doesn't allow you to pair their smaller JBL Party Boost speakers to their larger JBL Party Box speakers. However, the thing with Sony's Party Connect is that you can't pair it up to any of Sony's older speakers that are using wireless party chain, like let's say an XB90 or one of those older speakers like either an XB41, XB32, and the list just goes on. Now, overall, Sony's Party Connect gets the job done, but it is not my favorite speaker pairing protocol. It's not as easy to use. Sometimes all of your speakers don't get paired up, and sometimes you will hear some stuttering. However, what Sony's Party Connect really has going for it is that you can mix and match your large box speakers to your much smaller portable Bluetooth speakers like either the XB43, XB33, or XB23. But with all that being said, the Sony XP700 is a decent large portable Bluetooth box speaker that has some major upgrades over its predecessor. Specifically, it sounds much clearer than the XB90, but the XP700 still maintains its warmer bass-heavy sound signature. But if you want, you can always go in and raise the mids on this speaker through Sony's app. Now, personally, I think the XP700's new light feature is more dynamic looking than Sony's previous box speakers, but you are better off just turning off this light feature outdoors in the daytime because you're just going to be wasting battery because you can't see it. Now, if you're a casual user, yeah, the XP700 will deliver. But if you're someone that likes to moonlight as a DJ, you might have to pass on this one because of no RCA inputs or DJ stand. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.